A federal appeals court on Wednesday hears the case brought by 26 states challenging President Obama's new health care law. Joining us now from Washington, D.C. is former New York Lieutenant Governor and Newsmax contributor Betsy McCoy. She is a constitutional scholar and one of the few people who's actually read all the Democrats' health care overhaul legislation. Betsy, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, you're quite welcome. And tomorrow is a very big day. All in all, 28 states across the nation are challenging the constitutionality of the Obama health law. 26 of them are represented in this case.
Now, 3 judges will hear arguments on whether to reverse a Florida judge's ruling that struck down vast portions of the law. What will the judges be listening for?
Well, first of all, the most important issue they'll be addressing is the constitutionality of the federal government compelling Americans to enroll in a one-size-fits-all government-designed health plan, though it's often private insurance, whether they want it or not, whether they can afford it or not. And the argument made by these 26 states is that nothing in the United States Constitution permits the federal government to force individuals to buy any kind of product. In fact, those 28 beautiful words in the 10th Amendment expressly prohibit it.
Now, the judge's ruling won't come down for perhaps a few months. What are the consequences of this ruling on the case and ultimately for the average American? Could it do away with the law once and for all?
Yes. In fact, if this ruling is upheld, if the appeals court upholds Judge Vinson's decision that the individual requirement for health insurance is unconstitutional, and if the appeals court decision is upheld by the United States Supreme Court next year, then the whole Obama health law could topple like a house of cards. And here's the reason. Most complex legislation includes a boilerplate provision that says if one part of the law is struck down or deemed unconstitutional, the rest of the law remains in force. But this law does not have that boilerplate provision. The authors of the law took it out. They argued to Congress at the time the law was being drafted that the law was like a fine watch with so many intricate moving parts that if one part was removed, the rest of it wouldn't work. And in the lower court, Judge Roger Vinson used that argument against the Obama administration and said, look, if this is a fine watch and one part doesn't work, none of it works, I will have to declare the whole law null and void, and that's what he did.
Now, Betsy, this legal challenge to Obamacare is just one of many, with the issue perhaps heading before the Supreme Court by year's end. Looking into your crystal ball, if it goes before the Supreme Court, does it remain the law of the land?
Well, it's hard to predict what the Supreme Court will do. It's likely to be a 5-4 vote. But let me say this. This is not the last challenge to the constitutionality of the Obama health law. In fact, in 2014, when most of the provisions go into effect, there will be numerous other challenges. One of the most important will be on the issue of privacy, because Section 1311 of this law requires the health insurers to pay only doctors who do whatever the federal government dictates. For the first time in history, the federal government will be dictating how doctors treat privately insured patients. So even if you have Aetna or Cigna or United Healthcare or some other big plan, the government's going to be in charge of your care. Your treatments will have to be put into an electronic database. Your doctor's decisions will be monitored. And ultimately, your doctor will have to choose between doing what's right for you and staying in the government's good graces. Well, there's a long string of Supreme Court cases that say that kind of interference in how doctors treat patients is unconstitutional.
You've written a pocket guide to what's in the president's healthcare law entitled Obama Health Law, What It Says and How to Overturn It. Are you happy with how the GOP has gone about repealing Obamacare? And what would you advise them in the House to do to accomplish repeal?
Well, I'd very much like to see the repeal of Obamacare be the price of raising the debt ceiling. And here's why. $750 billion in identifiable savings over the first decade alone, not those illusory savings that were in Speaker Boehner's 2011 budget deal. Secondly, repealing the Obama health law would relieve the nation of its current condition, which is legal limbo. States and companies everywhere are spending hundreds of millions or billions of dollars preparing for a law that may never go into effect.
Betsy, we've seen a flurry of reports indicating that despite record profits, companies are not hiring. Is Obamacare in part killing the economy and preventing this nation from fiscally getting back on track?
Well, it is true that many employers, large and small, are saying to themselves, if I add this employee to my own workforce, how much is it going to cost me in future health care benefits under this new law? So it is a deterrent to expanding the workforce.
Can you give us some specific examples as to how else Obamacare is hurting the economy?
Well, the major reason that the Obama health law is having problems providing problems for the economy is that it's making it very unclear and uncertain to employers how much it's going to cost to increase their workforce. As I said, we are in a position of legal limbo right now. We don't know whether this law will be in force in 2014 or whether it will be struck down or repealed by the legislature. But in addition, the law makes it that much more costly for an employer to add each new worker to the workforce.
Now, you're a patient care advocate, and recently Representative Paul Ryan proposed changes to Medicare, changes that are being demagogued by Democrats. But doesn't Obamacare take $500 billion out of Medicare to fund major parts of the president's health care law?
I was so distressed to see the vilification of Paul Ryan and the Republicans over Medicare because the Obama health law decimated Medicare. It took $575 billion out of Medicare over the next decade, took it out of that program and moved it to fund a vast expansion of Medicaid. It's literally like robbing Peter to pay Paul, only it's robbing grandma to pay Medicaid beneficiaries. And by the way, in the hearing tomorrow before the appeals court, another critical part of this law that will be examined by the judges is this vast expansion of Medicaid. They're adding 85 million people in all to Medicaid. 31% of the non-elderly population will be in Medicaid in 2014. Medicaid is already 22% of the average state budget. And what they've done is taken away the freedom of states to determine who's eligible for Medicaid and what kind of benefits they'll get. States used to have that freedom so that they could design a Medicaid program that was affordable for their own taxpayers. Under the Obama health law, the states have no freedom to design Medicaid. They are forced to pay for part of these expanded benefits.
Betsy McCoy, thanks again for joining us. And again, the book is The Obama Health Law, What It Says and How to Overturn It. It is available on Amazon.com or by making a donation to Betsy's advocacy group, defendyourhealthcare.us. Betsy, thanks again.
You're quite welcome.